To the Planning Committee. The first item on our agenda is any apologies for absence? No, thank you. Item 2 then, any disclosures of personal and prejudicial interests? Are there any? No? No, thank you. Okay, item 3 then is to approve and sign the minutes of the previous meeting as a correct record. That's pages 1 to 3. So we go to page 1. On to page 2. And page 3, if somebody moves it to record. Thank you. Item 4, any items for withdrawal, Ian?
No, Chair.
There are none, thank you. So we move on to item 5 with the determination of planning applications under the Town and Country Planning Act of 1990. And the first one we have there on item 5. First item there you see on page 7 is at Pandy Road. So Simon, that's yours.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. There's no updates for this item, so I'll just go straight into the report. Ian, do you just want to put up the first slide, please? Thanks. This application is reported to Planning Committee as the site area exceeds the committee threshold of 2 hectares. The application is one of 2 battery energy storage systems on today's agenda. Members may recall that a similar development was approved on a site at Brinterwood earlier this year. The shift towards electrification of transportation and heating in the UK will result in increased power demands. The increase in renewable energy flowing into the grid will also result in more intermittent supply. Energy storage facilities such as that proposed would assist in balancing the demands upon the grid and reducing reliance on fossil fuel power plants that have traditionally been used to manage grid stability and peak demand. The proposed developments for a battery storage system and associated works located to the southeast of the Velindre substation and gas compressor station. The area of the site is marked with an X on the plan. By way of context, you can see Morrison Hospital to the southeast, the M4 junction, M46 along the south of the page, and the distinctive circular shape of Velindre Business Park to the southwest. You can also see various solar farms on the image in the vicinity of the site, and the purple and green lines on the image are public rights of way. Next slide, please, Ian. The broad area where the infrastructure would be sited is marked with 3 crosses and is to the north of the 400 kV overhead power lines that you can see on the image. The application site extends under and beyond the pylons and to the south, but these areas are proposed for landscaping to provide ecological enhancements and to assist in screening the development. The land is currently farmland used for grazing sheep. There's a gentle gradient at the site, and you can make out the field boundaries, some of which are defined by sparse hedgerows and mature trees. The nearest residential properties to the south are those at Maesegloes, which you can just about see at the bottom of the page. Next slide, please, Ian. This slide is a master plan which shows the application site outlined in red, with the other land within the applicant's ownership and control in blue. Members may recall that an infrastructure project delivering grid balancing services, known as the Greener Grid Park, has been approved to the north within the blue line. This is directly adjacent to the site and is currently being constructed by Statkraft, who are the applicants for this application. In a broad sense, the proposed development can be viewed as an extension to the Greener Grid Park, and this current application includes a cable connection to this facility and would also share its access to the adopted highway. The application has been advertised by site notices, and a press notice has also been issued. One letter of objection has been received, raising matters relating to visual impacts, landscaping and noise. These matters have been addressed within the officer's report. Key LDP policies that are relevant to the consideration of the proposal are CV2, as the application site is located within the countryside, EU1, as the development is related to renewable and low carbon energy, ER5 relating to landscape protection, and PS2, which sets out good placemaking principles for all developments. The main issues for this application are whether the submitted scheme would accord with national planning policies and LDP policies in relation to the principle of the development, landscape and visual amenity impacts, impacts upon residential amenity, highway safety, flood risk, and the environment generally, including green infrastructure and ecological impacts. Next slide, please, Ian. The Officer report sets out the national planning policy position on energy storage developments. Both Future Wales and Planning Policy Wales are broadly supportive of such developments. PPW notes that proposals for new storage facilities should be supported wherever possible. The site is located within the countryside where proposals for necessary infrastructure is permitted. The applicant has undertaken a site selection process, which has considered technical and environmental constraints, as well as the proximity of the existing substation. The site is within a local search area for solar developments under policy EU1, and that area is shown in a lilac colour on the image. As a proposal which support the shift to renewable and low carbon energy, this policy is considered to be relevant and is supportive of such developments, subject to the criteria in the policy, which have been assessed within the Officer report and have been found to be acceptable. The site is also partly located within a mineral safeguarding area under policy RP13, which is shown in the sandy colour on the image. This is not considered to be a constraint to the development and is fully addressed within the report. Members may have seen articles recently in the press relating to solar developments and their location on good quality agricultural land. The application site is grade 3B land, which is moderate quality and is not the best and most versatile land protected by PPW. Therefore, the quality of the land is not considered to be a constraint to the development. Overall, the broad principle of the development is considered to be acceptable in this location, having regard to national and local planning policies. Next slide, please. The application's been accompanied by computer-generated images which show the key components of the development. An elongated compound would be formed, surfaced in aggregates, that would run parallel with the overhead lines running to the south. 15 blocks or half blocks of batteries would be provided. The majority of battery modules would be 3.8 metres in height. The tallest structure within the development would be the security and lighting columns, 6 metres in height. Other structures on the site include welfare office, water tanks, diesel generators, store and control containers, air core reactors and transformers. Lighting and security cameras would be positioned around the development, and the compound would be enclosed by a 3.4 metre high weld mesh and electric fence. SUDS features are proposed to the south of the compound area. To mitigate the landscape and visual impacts of the development, a woodland planting belt is proposed to the north and south of the development, and hedgerow planting would be introduced along the field boundaries. The next image gives an impression of the mature landscaping after 15 years. Ian, could you show the next one? Could you just flip between the two so that you can see the difference? Okay, thanks. And next slide, sorry, please, Ian. This slide shows an example of a battery development, noting, however, that the battery modules proposed under the current application would be green rather than white. Next slide, please, Ian. This is a photo from the site looking towards the alignment of the pylons towards the site access coming down from the existing Swansea North substation. Next slide, please, Ian. This photo is taken from the access road to the greener grid development. The proposed development will also utilise this access road. The public footpath crosses the access near to this location and will have views of the development. Note the levels do gradually rise, and there are mature trees in the local landscape that will help to screen the development. Next slide, please, Ian. This slide's taken from under the 400 kV pylons and shows sheep in the foreground standing around what would have been an old field hedge boundary. In the background, you can just about make out the DVLA on the horizon, with the nearest properties at Maes Eglwys in the middle ground, approximately 200 metres away. Next slide, please, Ian. This view shows the fields where the development would be located and the access road leading to the Greener Grid Park, which is currently under construction. Next slide, please, Ian. Both the individual and cumulative landscape and visual impacts have been assessed within the officer report. The current slide shows other existing and proposed developments in the vicinity, including the proposed development at Morriston Hospital to the south and other proposed battery developments to the north, including Lletia Skilp, which is proposed to be the next item on the agenda. And that is the sort of light blue one to the north of the red line. In view of the low-lying nature of the development, it's considered the landscape and visual impacts will be largely limited to the local area. The impacts will be mitigated by existing vegetation around the site and the proposed woodland planting belt to the south of the development. It's also acknowledged that the local landscape is already influenced by man-made structures, including the overhead lines that cross the site. The site is not located within a protected landscape area and is within a local search area for solar developments. As such, this is not considered to be a highly sensitive landscape area. Overall, the individual and cumulative landscape visual impacts are considered to be acceptable. Next slide, please, Ian. Turning to residential amenity impacts, the nearest residential properties are those at Abergelli Farm to the north and Maes Eglwys to the south. The application has been accompanied by a noise assessment, which considers both the individual and cumulative impacts, together with other proposed developments in the vicinity, including the Greener Grid Park. No significant noise impacts have been identified. Following comments from pollution control, a condition is recommended to restrict noise levels to the limits set out within the noise assessment. In terms of access and highway safety, the site would not be manned but would be subject to periodic maintenance and servicing. As such, operational traffic would be minimal. The construction works are estimated to last 12 to 18 months, with month 6 being the peak construction period. With other potential infrastructure-related developments in the vicinity being constructed within the same time frame, a condition is recommended for a construction traffic management plan to ensure the build programme has regard to other consented developments in the vicinity. This document would also provide further details on the construction site layout and measures for the management of the rights of way crossing the site. Subject to these requirements, the local highway authority have not objected to the development. In terms of ecology and green infrastructure, the site is not within a nationally or locally designated ecological site of importance. The main habitats present on site include neutral grassland, scrub, hedgerows, lines of trees and bare ground. 4 moderate quality oak trees would be removed, together with a silver birch and group of mixed broadleaf trees categorised as low quality. These removals are considered unavoidable or would be appropriately mitigated through the landscaping scheme. Ecological mitigation and enhancement measures have been set out within the application and conditions are recommended to minimise ecological and environmental impacts during construction. A landscape ecological management plan will also be required by the condition to ensure the proposed habitat measures on site are suitably managed. The site is hydrologically connected to the Bury Inlet Special Area of Conservation, where nutrient levels relating to nitrogen are impacting upon the Bury Inlet and its features. As the proposed development would not discharge additional nutrients into the Bury Inlet, the development has been screened out as not having any likely significant effects upon the Bury Inlet sac. Parts of the development are shown to be affected by surface water flooding. The affected areas to the south are landscaped areas, whereas those in the north will be managed by drainage features to channel surface water away from the development, which is considered to be acceptable. The site and the wider area are crossed by public footpaths and bridleways. Given the potential impacts of the development, both alone and in combination with other proposed energy-related infrastructure projects in the area, which would impact upon the character, enjoyment and convenience of the public footpath network in the area, is considered both reasonable and necessary for the developer and the developers of other similar proposed developments in the vicinity to fund improvements to the public rights of way network in the locality. This is proposed to be secured by a Section 106 agreement as detailed within the officer report. In relation to other matters, a gas pipeline is located within the vicinity of the site. As a result, National Gas have requested a condition for protection measures for this asset, which is considered to be both reasonable and necessary, given that it provides important infrastructure. Fire safety measures have been incorporated into the design of the development, and further details are recommended to be secured by a condition. Matters relating to the coal mining legacy at the site, land contamination, heritage impacts and drainage have all been addressed within the officer's report, having regard to advice from consultees and are considered to be acceptable in accordance with LDP policies. Overall, the scheme is recommended for approval subject to conditions and the signing of a Section 106 agreement. Thank you, Chair.
Indeed, thank you very much, Simon. Now we have one agent for the application. Alicia Dunn is online, I think. Alicia, I can see.
Yes, hi.
Okay,
Good afternoon.
you've got your 5 minutes to address the committee then, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. My name is Alicia Dunn and I am an Associate Town Planning at DWD, the firm of planning consultants engaged by Statkraft. Thank you for the opportunity to speak at this committee meeting. Statkraft appreciate the detailed report by Mr. Hughes. I'll firstly start with a bit of background on the proposal and how it relates to the Swansea Greener Grid Park, before explaining why we consider it is acceptable against the relevant planning policy. The proposed development is located adjacent to National Grid's Swansea North substation and is an extension to the Swansea Greener Grid Park, which is currently under construction. The consented Greener Grid Park will use components called synchronous compensators to help strengthen and stabilise the UK's electricity network. As Mr. Hughes spoke about, the proposed battery project will add further support to this project by storing energy from the grid when there is excess supply and will then discharge that energy when supply is lower and demand is higher. This will allow more renewable energy to be delivered, helping make our electricity network more resilient and fit for the future. The site is located within the open countryside, where policy CV2 of the local development plan allows projects that are necessary for infrastructure provision and enhancement of networks. The project design has evolved throughout the planning process to maximise benefits and minimise impacts. Statkraft carried out extensive pre-application consultation which exceeded the statutory requirements and included a drop-in event and virtual exhibition. Feedback from this consultation helped inform the design of the scheme. An EIA screening request confirmed that the project did not require an environmental impact assessment as its potential impacts are low. An amendment to the application was submitted to refine the site layout and included technical improvements and optimisations. The site is at very low risk of flooding and the project would include a sustainable drainage system to prevent surface water flooding. A pre-application has been submitted to the SUD's approval body. The landscape and visual assessment found that there would be very limited and localised visual effects from the project. Statkraft have proposed a significant amount of landscape screening, including more mature planting, to further reduce any visual impact. Statkraft has also agreed to provide over £16,000 to improve local public rights of way networks through a Section 106 agreement. The site is located within the catchment area of the Carmarthen Bay and Estuary Special Area of Conservation. As shown in our Habitats Regulation Assessment screening, the project would not result in any adverse impacts on the integrity of the marine SAC. Council's Stage 1 test for likely significant effects agreed with this conclusion, and Natural Resources Wales have confirmed that they have no objections, subject to appropriate conditions. Our planning assessment shows that the principle of the development in this location is acceptable. The proposed development complies with planning policy in relation to the countryside, public amenity, flood risk, heritage, ecology, and contaminated land. It makes efficient use of lower grade agricultural land near existing infrastructure and is not on BMV land. The environmental and technical reports demonstrate that there would be no unacceptable environmental impacts. The conditions proposed by Ms Hughes are acceptable to Statkraft. Importantly, Planning Policy Wales supports battery projects, stating that energy storage has an important part to play in managing the transition to a low-carbon economy, and that proposals for new storage facilities should be supported wherever possible. There is a clear and growing need for this kind of infrastructure to help stabilise the grid and allow more renewable energy like wind and solar to connect, supporting the Welsh Government target of 70% of renewable electricity by 2030. In conclusion, this project has been designed sensitively and no consultee objections remain. The officer's view is that this application should be approved subject to conditions. I fully endorse the recommendation of your officers and very much hope that you can support Statkraft's plans. Thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you very much. Okay, well, as it happened, I've got a ward member on the committee. Do you want to speak first?
Yes, to date, I'm the local councillor for that area. We've had 2 public consultations, at least locally. My dealings with Statkraft have been very professional, very transparent, and very impressed so far. During the consultations, there were a couple of issues that were raised, but they were addressed at the time. I haven't received any formal complaint about the development, so I'm happy to support. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Anyone else wish to speak? Oh, sorry? Oh, God, Councillor Jones and Councillor Downing.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Simon, for a really comprehensive report. It's a general comment. It could actually go for both the applications. First of all, I can only use this as an analogy. There seem to be a lot of these battery storage and solar farms and everything else springing up in one area. And many, many years ago, we had the difficulty with the HMOs in one area in the uplands, and we had to have a special policy. Is there a special policy that covers now the amount of land that we can lose to these? I'm not saying I'm against them, I'm just asking a general question, because we seem to have an awful lot of applications coming forward. And where is the energy coming from? I.e., I mean, is it locally that it's being produced, or is it being produced further afield and actually we're storing it here? For example, is it all around the wind farms of southwest Wales, or is it further afield, and is it being then piped down to us? I'm thinking of the pipeline from Milford Haven that comes through there to go to Gloucester. Obviously, it wasn't all local, so I just want a bit more information about why these storage facilities are here, and actually will we ever reach a saturation point, and would we have to look at all this again? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, this is the way forward. We'll be getting many of these in years to come, and the reason why they go to the same place is because of the infrastructure. If they went somewhere else, then they put the same infrastructure in, which will cost more money again. So it is best to have all the infrastructure in one place, and then these will be scattered around. Just a question from me on the construction management plan, on number 12 on control of nuisance. It says details of restrictions to be applied during construction, including timings. Well, there's no timings there, so are we going to be told what the timings are? Not have complaints afterwards that there's construction lorries going through at 5 o'clock in the morning and 10 o'clock at night.
Councillor Lewis.
Thank you, Chairman. I really got only 3 words for it, but I feel quite strongly about this. I think the 3 words are dig, baby, dig. Now, we were meant to have cheaper electricity, promised by the Labour government. We would have cheaper. And out of fact, Norway has put 30 stations out in the North Sea to gather oil, and we haven't put one in this year. I'm totally opposed to this. At the end of the day, it's going to be an expensive item, and the poor British public will be paying through the nose once again. And so when we get the budget next week, we'll all be crying. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor May.
Thank you for that. The point's been made about it's a storage point. Now, to be a storage point, you've got to have like a medium to carry it through, like is it an overhead cable to get to, because the actual battery storage thing isn't going to be an island, is it? There's got to be, will there be underground cabling required to transmit the power to the battery storage, or is it coming through overhead lines? So is there an extra infrastructure, is what I'm asking, to access the plot?
Thank you. But see nobody online. So Simon, I have a number of questions there, please.
Ian, could you just put up the slide 5? It shows the local search area. So to answer your question in terms of whether there's a policy about sort of restrictions, etc., there's no specific policy restricting infrastructure developments. So I suppose they're looked at on a case-by-case basis. But I think the reason why they're there is because you've got this sort of quantum of infrastructure already there in terms of the substation, which these developments are tapping into. So that's the reason they're there. I mean, as I said, the area that's highlighted in sort of lilac on the plan that's in front of you, that's actually a local search area for renewable energy. So specifically for solar developments. So within that sort of large area around the site, that's an area which is seen as the least constrained in terms of that it could potentially accommodate renewables. So as you go outside of that area, you're going into areas that are more constrained, potentially because of ecological designations, potentially because they're more sensitive in terms of landscape. So being within this sort of local search area is a least constrained area in terms of those things. So that is why these developments are being focused on this area, because it is the least constrained and there's already important infrastructure that it's tapping into. I'm afraid I can't answer your question about actually where the energy is coming from that would be stored there, whether it's it's obviously coming into the grid at the substation, and as the agent said, during times of where there's not much demand, it can be stored and then released when there's high demand. I'm afraid I can't answer the question about where that energy is actually coming from, I'm afraid.
So do we know, are the grid connections in that area though?
Yeah, so I'll just come on to that.
Okay, sorry.
Because I think there was a specific question about the cabling. In terms of the timing of construction, there's an informative note which sets out the, which was from pollution control, which are the sort of general construction timings that we would normally like to limit developments to. And then the construction environment management plan, I think, also has the opportunity for the developer to set out their exact construction timings, and obviously we'll review those with our pollution colleagues to make sure they're satisfactory. So that's covered by the condition. In relation to the underground cabling, Ian, could you go to the master plan one, which is either the last image or image 4? Yeah, go to the last image. There you go. So the battery storage development that's proposed, you can just about make it out there. The red line sort of juts out to the north. So it's actually connecting to the grid via the greener grid site that's already been approved. So there's a cable route from the greener grid development into the existing substation. So that's how it sort of taps in to the existing infrastructure.
Would there have to be any upgrade to the existing infrastructure?
Well, the greener grid development includes a cable link. So the greener grid development is currently under construction, and that includes a cable link to the existing substation. I'm not aware of whether any new infrastructure is required within the actual substation itself. It certainly doesn't form part of this application. So yeah, this development connects into the greener grid, and the greener grid then connects into the existing substation. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know overwork Ian, but could you go back to slide 5, Ian, please? Yeah, are you saying that the purple areas there is nothing on that land at the moment?
No, I'm not saying there's nothing on there. I'm saying that's an area identified within the LDP as a local search area for solar developments and renewable developments. So that's an area where we've looked at, which is potentially the least constrained in terms of ecological designations, landscape designations.
I understand that. Or shall I ask, are there solar on
Shall I
that
just
land
answer
now?
that? Sorry.
There may be. But you can see that Ian's just helpfully put up the overhead there, which is the sort of current position. So you can see there are solar to the north east. There's also some to the south southwest as well.
So that's what's feeding it.
If I could,
Yeah.
If I could attempt to answer Councillor Dowley's point, it's pretty much redundant pasture land, and that's it. I visited the site, so I hope that answers the question.
Thank you, Councillor. Well, I've got no one else wishing to speak. No, I don't see anyone online there. So you can see the recommendation is to approve. And we take that vote now then, please, Gareth.
Yep. Councillor Peter Black.
4.
Adam Davis.
4.
Phil Downing.
4.
Mary Jones.
Abstain.
Mike Lewis.
4.
Richard Lewis.
Against?
Nicola Matthews.
4.
Peter May.
4.
Mark Tribe.
4.
Mike White.
4.
And Paul Lloyd.
And 4.
That's 9 for, 1 abstention, 1 against, Chair.
Thank you very much. That's carried. And then we, excuse me, we move on to the next item. Item 2 is in Velindre now, and that you find on page 56. And this time is Ian's case. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon. Okay, so this application is seeking consent for an energy storage system and battery storage, substation and associated infrastructure, and an access track of land west of Lletys Clip Farm in Velindre. It's reported to Planning Committee because the area exceeds 2 hectares in size. There is an update sheet for this one to confirm that the National Gas Transmission has no objections to the proposal, subject to a condition and advisory note that's already been stated in the main committee report. So this slide shows the general location of the site in context of the surrounding area. Location of the site is identified with the red circle and located in the rural location north of the M4 but to the south of the village of Velindre. Next slide, please. So here's a more detailed site location plan of the site outlined in red. An aerial image of the application site also provided. Site mainly is a collection of grazing fields that extends approximately 25.5 hectares in area. There are occasional sporadic residential development properties in the area. To the southeast of the site is the Velindre National Grid substation and gas compressor station, and that is adjacent to the consented greener grid facility that is under construction that has been mentioned, and the scheme that has been considered by the early item in this committee. Next slide, please. So this is the proposed site plan of the development, showing that the majority of the development infrastructure would be confined to the northeast of the site. In this area, there would be a series of container-type structures sited in rows to form a battery storage. These will be alongside a substation compound, which will contain various electricity infrastructure, some of which would be housed inside the building, measuring approximately 45 metres by 14.5 metres, and a pitch roof of about 14 metres in height. Leading from the northeastern area is an existing farm track which will be altered and upgraded. This is shown in dark grey on the plan. A new access would be created to connect the public roads to the west, which is also shown in dark grey. However, the existing farm track, which connects to the same public road that forks northwest, would be retained. Near the access fork, as shown in hatched in pink, would be the temporary construction compound. Large swathes of land would be subject to landscaping and ecological enhancement areas. The red line boundary also extends to the south to allow largely underground cabling connectivity from the compound to the main electricity grid at the Velindre National Grid substation. Overall, despite the large red line boundary of the site, the amount of physical development is much less and concentrated in certain areas. It's worth noting here that the application is seeking permission for a period of 50 years, after which the site would be decommissioned and the land restored. Next slide, please. So this slide focuses on the northeastern part of the site, particularly the compound which contains the building, the substation and the electricity infrastructure, the main components of it. The upper and central part of the site are some of the cross sections through the compound, and the bottom part is how the compound would be laid out if you were looking down from the sky. Next slide, please. So this slide shows the other type of infrastructure in the northeastern area of the site, namely the battery units and various storage container type structures. The site will also be enclosed by fencing and gates, and they are shown at the bottom of the slide. Next slide, please. So turning to the photographs, the application has been supported by a landscape visual assessment, and it's useful in understanding some of the key viewpoints of the site and how the development might appear. This photograph looks from a field access gate abutting a public right-of-way and is one of the nearest public positions to view the northeastern part of the site, and the general direction is shown by a red arrow in the map at the bottom of the slide. The top photo shows the current view and superimposes an estimated outline in yellow of the development that will be located behind the trees. The bottom photo shows an estimated view of the development in situ after 1 year of being implemented. Next slide, please. So this photo is an estimated view of the development that's been in situ for about 15 years after being implemented. It suggests that landscaping and vegetation growth would provide further screening of the development from this viewpoint. Next slide, please. So this viewpoint is taken in the vicinity of where the new access would be created. Again, the red arrow on the site plan indicates the general direction. From this position, the northeastern compound is at a long distance. The top photo in the distance superimposes an estimated outline in yellow of the development. The red line estimates the span of the overall compound when viewed from this position. Bottom photo shows an estimated view of the development in situ from year 1 of being implemented. As you can see, there's an access track now running through the left-hand corner of the field, through the hedge line then that takes you towards the compound. Next slide, please. So this view shows the estimated view of the development in situ from year 15 of being implemented, and again suggesting there's some screening by landscaping and vegetation. Next slide, please. So this slide is a collection of photographs from the vicinity of the northeastern compound itself from various directions. So I've color-coded each of them. So each photo to match the arrows on the site plan to show the approximate direction and view. So the red photograph is the field that is behind the tree line from the earlier viewpoint of the public right-of-way. The blue photo shows the compound, looks from the compound back along the access track that will be upgraded. The orange photo looks at the old farm building that's in the central part of the compound. And the purple photo looks at the most northern part of the compound, which is generally the highest point of the site. Next slide, please. So the application is seeking consent for an energy storage system, substation, and the infrastructure and the access track. So the site would import and export electricity, storing surplus electricity from the grid, and then providing a means of additional supply at peak times. It would not actually generate new electricity. So the main issues to consider relate to the principle of the development, the impacts on visual amenity and the landscape, residential amenity, highway safety, flooding, drainage, and the environment in general. The report that is before you today has considered all the relevant material considerations and in context of the relevant planning policies and guidelines, and drawing on a range of consultees, comments from consultees, none of which have raised an objection. The application has been publicised, and 1 letter of support and 1 letter of objection has been received, and they've been summarised on page 64 and 65 of the report. The development is located in the countryside, and there's a general presumption against development in the countryside unless it's justified as an exemption. So in this case, the proposal constitutes necessary infrastructure provision, and there's a strong national planning policy in support of the development for improving energy infrastructure and decarbonisation. The requirement for the development to be located within close proximity to the substation is also a key factor here. So the site is located outside the local, solar local search area, which is the land that is potentially the least constrained for solar energy developments. The report explains that the area to be developed via this scheme is relatively small in context of the local search area, and given the specific nature of the scheme, it would not prejudice the development of further renewable energy schemes within the search area. The report considers the principle of the development is justified. The application has been accompanied by a landscape and visual impact assessment and concludes that the site can accommodate the development without significant adverse visual impact. Whilst the site is in a rural location, the general area does show various energy-related infrastructure and smaller forms of development in the wider area. The report also notes that the majority of the important landscape features, including the boundary trees, hedgerows and hedge banks crossing the site, would be retained, and in places reinforced alongside mitigation and buffer planting. The report, and partly in this presentation, indicates that the key viewpoints, including from public roads and footpaths, would be acceptable. It's also considered that the cumulative impact of various developments in the area deem it to be acceptable. It must be noted that the application is seeking a 50-year permission, after which the site would be decommissioned and the land restored, and this forms part of the visual acceptability of the scheme. In terms of ecology, biodiversity and green infrastructure, the application has been accompanied by a range of reports and survey work. Part of the site is within Site of Importance for Nature Conservation, which are SINC. However, subject to mitigation and conditions, the application of the proposal is considered to be acceptable, and no objections have been raised by the Council's ecologist, the landscape officer and NRW. Whilst the site is within the catchment area and is hydrologically linked to the Carmarthen Bay and Estuaries Special Area of Conservation, the proposal is not a source of nutrients and no foul drainage is proposed. As such, the report concludes that the proposal would not have a likely significant effect upon the SAC. There are sporadic residential properties in the vicinity of the application site, and the report has considered impact on their amenity. And following consultation with the Pollution Control Department and subject to conditions, the report considers that there would not be any unreasonable adverse impact on their amenities. The presentation has demonstrated the points of access to the development. The application has been supported by highway assessments, which have been reviewed by the Highway Authority. Whilst there would be constructional traffic on the local roads, the development, when operational, would have limited effects on the operations on the roads and limited impacts on staff and maintenance requirements. Subject to conditions, the Highway Authority would have no objections to the proposal. There are no public footpaths directly within the site, but there are in the immediate vicinity of the site. The report explains that some views of the paths may be impacted by the development, particularly during the early period when landscaping hasn't matured. The right-of-way team has highlighted the need for improvement to the right-of-way network in the area, and therefore to mitigate the impact of the development, the applicant has agreed to provide a financial contribution of around £16,500 towards improvements to the immediate network. This would be subject to a legal agreement. A small section of the site is at risk of flooding, but this will be mostly limited to the north boundary of the site containing landscaping and ecological enhancements, and parts of the access road of the site where ecological enhancements are to the southwest. In this area, there would be temporary soil storage and construction compound areas. A flood consequence assessment and a drainage strategy has been provided, and consultation with NRW and the drainage officer has taken place. The affected areas are considered to mainly contain less vulnerable development. The proposal also needs to be considered close to existing energy sources in order to operate, and this is considered to be part of the justification in support of the development. Furthermore, when the site is operational, it would have limited operational attendance by workers, and the scheme is to have a temporary permission of 50 years. NRW and the Council's drainage officer has not raised an objection on flooding grounds, and the report considers that the actual risk and consequences associated with flooding is low and can be reasonably managed and mitigated. Welsh Water and National Gas Transmission have indicated there are utility infrastructure in the area, but subject to conditions, they have no objections to the proposal. So the report concludes that the proposal satisfies relevant planning policies and guidelines, and the recommendation is to approve subject to conditions and a legal agreement for paths. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Okay, then we have a speaker from as the agent for the application. Mr. Turner, Richard Turner, you got your 5 minutes when you're ready. Thank you.
Binhandar, good afternoon, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak on this important application. My name is Richard Turner, and I'm a planning manager at Innova Renewables, the applicant. Innova are a leading renewable energy developer with an established track record delivering solar and energy storage projects. This includes our Carn Nicholas solar farm, approved by Swansea Council and now generating local renewable energy since 2023. This council is committed to tackle climate change and set out an ambition to support Swansea in becoming net zero. Energy storage systems, as we've heard on the previous item, are necessary to balance the demand and supply of electricity and provide flexibility to the grid. This is particularly important for renewables which have a variable generation profile. Welsh Government has committed to decarbonising the electricity network, and energy storage will play a crucial role in managing the electricity supply as more renewable energy is connected into the grid. This is why Planning Policy Wales sets out that proposals for new energy storage facilities should be supported wherever possible. We'd like to thank your officers for their diligent work and thorough assessment of our application, weighing up the limited impacts of this development and its compliance with the development plan, and concluding with a recommendation for approval. The site has been selected based on its discrete location, almost entirely screened by established vegetation. Its close proximity to the Swansea North substation, which provides a viable grid connection, is also crucial. The site is located outside of any designated landscape, and the main site avoids sensitive ecological areas. The energy storage site is located outside areas of higher flood risk, and there are no objections from any statutory consultees, the community council, and the project is not controversial within the local community. This is also an application that has received some support. Probably to answer one of the questions that came up on the last item, importantly, all cabling to connect this project and infrastructure is included with the application, and it will all be underground. The application does not propose any new overhead electricity cables. All construction traffic will be carefully managed to minimise disruption and prioritise safety of other road users, with details set out in a construction traffic management plan. The route will avoid all villages, accessing from junction 46 of the M4 and then using a short section of the B4489. The majority of the internal access will use established tracks with some areas of upgrade and extension. And the highways, as we have heard, have confirmed that these details are acceptable. There are a number of local benefits which I'd like to highlight in a moment, but first of all, the landowner, Mr. Llewellyn, has asked me to read a short quote about the importance of farm diversification for his family. As a local family, we've been farming in South Wales for generations and on this land for over 40 years. The main site comprises just 5% of our overall family farm and is some of the poorest quality agricultural land, suitable only for grazing horses. Over the past decade, we have seen agricultural support reduce in real terms. Now, with the massive cuts to the D-Link payments and closing of the sustainable farming incentive, we will see a significant reduction in our farm income. This project will bring security and stability to our local family farm business. The proposal will also deliver the following key benefits: 400 megawatts of energy storage capacity, which can provide clean energy to power a significant number of homes. Contribution to energy security, boosting the resilience of the grid and reducing our reliance on imported fossil fuels. New woodland buffers along the site boundaries and over 1,400 linear metres of new hedgerow. There'll be economic benefits during construction and operation through employment, with additional spend in the local economy, as well as substantial business rate payments. As we've also heard, there'll be a financial contribution assisting the delivery of local footpath network enhancements for both the benefit of the local community and visitors to the area. And although not a planning matter, we will be providing a community benefit fund, as we do on all our projects. And just to conclude, our application presents a real opportunity to provide a valuable source of energy storage needed to support the decarbonisation of the electricity network by 2030. I'd like to thank you all for your time, and I hope that you will support your officer's recommendation for the approval of this vital energy storage project. Diolch.
Thank you so much. Again, board members with us. Did you want to make any contribution?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I just want to address some of the objections. Cyclists and runners have been mentioned. We have constructed a road off the Burma Road, which runs parallel to the main, well, the only road going through Velindre. It's the B4489. We have a parallel road there, which is perfectly usable for both walkers and cyclists, so they do have an alternative. Nesting is the impact on wildlife. We have moved a lapwing nesting colony onto just off this Burma Road, and that's been running for 18 months now, and as far as I know, has been very successful. Housing properties, I don't know the value of the value of the housing, whether it should come into it, I don't know at this time, but the area is sparsely populated. And if this application is successful, could I just ask my friend over there if you can keep me in the loop regarding any traffic implications so I can get the message out there to local residents? And that's it. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
All right. Thank you very much, Councillor. Any other member wish to speak here? Mike?
Yeah, if I could just ask for some clarification in regards to the stage 1 road safety audit. I know obviously you mentioned about the additionally to HGV passing providing points. Do you feel that that's going to be adequate for that section of road? The amount of heavy traffic that's going to be using it for that site? And another just query as well, Chair, as well, a follow-up regarding, just for clarification, if I could come back on that. Thank you.
Yeah, okay. Anyone else? Because Highways wishes to speak up. Amanda?
Sorry, could you repeat the question?
Yes,
could Councillor White repeat the question?
Yes, certainly. It's in regards to the stage 1 road safety audit. You mentioned there's going to be additional 2 HGV passing areas provided. Do you feel that that isn't adequate enough to identify HGV vehicles travelling along that road, knowing there's going to be a heavy plant there? Do you feel there could be perhaps more of those signs put up along that route?
Yeah, I think we've got to strike a balance between something which is only for a temporary, albeit at several months for the construction phase, rather than putting in permanent measures that are going to be there, for eternity. The scheme has been assessed and a CTMP has been conditioned, which will give us further power in the future when it comes to the construction phase and when it comes to properly reviewing the proposals that the applicant is putting forward for the construction phase. The road safety audit was submitted. That's something that we request when somebody is putting in something like a new access that has a potential impact to have potential safety concerns. So the road safety audit is kind of a backup for us, really, that it's been tested, it's been independently assessed, and it's been found to be a suitable solution. So I would say that yes, 1 passing space for 2 HGVs would be adequate in the circumstances.
And you feel that we know additional signage needed there for identifying HGV vehicles?
Well, in terms of the normal adopted highway, then I wouldn't envisage anything additional there. If the applicant wishes to put temporary signage within the his own site boundary, then he would be quite at liberty to do so. I mean, this might be something that when the CTMP comes in for discharge that we could look at in detail if you'd like us to. And if we feel that there is not enough signage, then that's something that we can request via an amendment to the CTMP. Is that something you'd like us to make a note of?
Yes, please, if you could.
Okay, that's fine.
I can
Thank-
another just it's on page 81 about the site working hours. On that you've got this 7:30 a.m. to 1800 hours. And on page 120 under the conditions it's 8 p.m. till 1800 hours. Can we have clarification if it's 7:30 or 8 o'clock?
Okay, thank you for the question. Just going back a bit about the construction, the signage. Under condition 7, which talks about a submission of a construction traffic management plan, one of the items there requires agreement of site and access signage. So that would form part of that condition. So it's fair to say that it has been included about the details of the signage arrangement for construction. Going to the timings of works, what you've referred to is there is and there is something on 100. What did you say? Page? Yeah, 120. I'm guessing these come from possibly different departments because some impacts may be considered under different legislation. The one under the advisory note, which is advisory note number 13, has been written by our pollution control department, which looks specifically about noise impacts, for example. But there may be other departments. Which page did you say is the other one? That has been written in the context of highway context, as opposed to. So it's a comment on different timings related to different departments' needs, I suppose. One looks at it from a highways perspective, and the other one looks at it from a pollution environmental health perspective. From my understanding, then, it would be a matter then that are covered by the conditions anyway, through the construction transportation plan. So that would be covered by that particular condition from a highways perspective. But from an environmental perspective, which is covered under separate legislation anyway, there is an informative note there regarding from a residential amenity perspective. So that's all I can lead you at this stage, is that it's a classic example of two different departments looking under their own respective legislation and giving their own advice, I suppose. Okay.
8 a.m. till 6 p.m.
Okay.
Thanks, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Did anyone else wishing? Can't see any more hands up. No. What's that? Yep. Okay, it's been moved that the recommendation of approval, and so we will take that vote now. And please, Karen.
Yes, Councillor Peter Black.
For.
Adam Davis.
For.
Phil Downing.
For.
Mary Jones.
For.
Mike Lewis.
For.
Richard Lewis. Nicola Matthews.
For.
Excuse me, Peter May.
For.
Mark Tribe.
For.
Mike White.
For.
Paul Lloyd.
And for.
That's 10 for, 1 against, Chair.
Well, thank you very much. And then we move on to, excuse me, item 6, and it is page 125, and that's over to Tom regarding the LDP. Thank you, Tom.
Thank you, Chair. Diolch. Pnawn da, good afternoon all. This report is for information, so no recommendation or decision needed on this one. The report confirms the position that I previously highlighted to members at meetings of council. It's in regard to the overlap dates between existing LDP, LDP 1, as it were, to LDP 2, and the fact that one doesn't concurrently run from another. So I've highlighted the relevant legislation that applies, and this is the 2015 amendments to the 2004 Act, Planning and Compulsory Purchase Act. and it's very specifically here to do with the difference that different situation that applies following the introductory of amendments in January 2016, 4th of January, such that at the date of the expiry of the plan period for plans adopted beyond that date, then they would cease to be part of the development plan under the terms of the Planning Compulsory Purchase Act 2004. Now, the report sets out the implications of this, and it is essentially written under two separate sections there. First, in regard to the development plan, as it will be applied to for decision making going forward. The development plan will be Future Wales National Development Plan, which has the same status as a local development plan and is already used on planning applications. But under the section on the Swansea LDP, it makes clear that that document, notwithstanding the change in its status, will continue to be used as material to planning determinations, and that you will see as committee reports prepared that continue to refer to both elements of Future Wales and the Swansea Local Development Plan. Now, the reasons for why that will continue to be the case is set out in those paragraphs 2.1, 2.4 to 2.6 there, which gives some explanation of the reasons for why the policies still have material significance, to use that term as we do in the planning system, and it sets out also at 2.6 where less weight would be given, specifically highlighting where it's not consistent with national planning policy, or where there's shown to be a very significant change in the evidence base upon which relevant LDP policies were produced and adopted. Now, frankly, that would be the case to a significant extent anyway. You know, once we use the development plan as a primary consideration in our decision making, of course, but then we always consider other material considerations, whether there has been a significant change in respect of national policy, for example. So you will have been used to some probably relatively rare examples of that, but where it does happen, then we do highlight it to members as part of the decision to be made. Now, the realities are really that the Swansea LDP was approved relatively and adopted relatively recently compared to many across Wales. So there is that level of consistency with the national framework, and I've only recently reported to members on the annual monitoring of the current LDP, which shows that many of the policies, the majority of them, continue to be aligned and very effective. And really, the key issue really as part of review has been looking at delivery of sites, plus a few fairly limited areas of the plan. So that's really summarised the position, as I say, in factual terms, really of where we are. It has explained in the report that this applies to this situation, applies to Swansea, and will apply to a number of other authorities as we go into the following year. But that it doesn't apply to many other LDPs adopted across Wales, and that's for those that were approved prior to when the legislation took effect. As I say, that was the 4th of January 2016. So in effect, what this legislation has created a sort of two-tier situation in Wales, where you've got others with planned periods going back to quite a few years ago, but have long been time expired, but they will continue to have that sort of status under the law. But it's going to be different for a number of local authority areas in Wales. So that's the situation really that's been created by the change in the amendments to the legislation. So I will leave it there in terms of an explanation, but obviously happy to take any questions that members may have on this matter.
Thank you, Tom. I got one hand up. Councillor May.
Well, thank you, Tom, for your very succinct explanation on that one. Looking at the sort of league tables of when people adopted their LDPs, I mean, Swansea was second to bottom, only Wrexham adopted it later in December 2023. We adopted on the 28th of February 2019. Now, obviously, if you adopt an LDP much later, it delays really important, robust and defensible policies like H9 on HMOs coming into force. Until there is no policy. I did ask a question at full council last time about, are we going to be operating with a similar tardiness, i.e. next to bottom out of all of the 25 planning authorities in Wales in adopting this one? Because, you know, can we really go on with saying we're going to have a date of 2010 to 25, but when in real fact we're only going to have 6 years to run of it? I mean, when's the next one going to come? Has there been any slippage since the last council meeting? Because as I said, I think members will be keeping a very close eye on this one to make sure we speed up with our replacement LDP. So actually we don't have to have reports like this coming to planning committees in the first place. Thank you.
Thank you. No one else? Can't see any of the hands up. Tom?
Yeah, I'll come straight back on that, Chair. So the current LDP was a replacement of a completely different system of development plans. It was unitary development plans. The 2010-2025 date that you pointed out, the 2010 refers to the start date of evidence gathering. And that there was a different situation in terms of the early years of production of that the existing development plan, and there were different priorities areas of work, including identifying housing supply and so on. So the net effect of that was when the plan was adopted, yes, there was a period of around 7 years or so, 7 to 8 years of plan period remaining, and it's been a very successful plan during those years, as I've said. And when it was revisited after 4 to 5 years, when it was required by the legislation for a review to be produced, then it wasn't possible to produce LDP2 in that kind of only a few years left. That's why there was going to be this situation of one plan not being concurrently flowing from the next. The new plan coming forward, as I say, is replacing an LDP that is already successful, so it is an update to it, and the time frame for producing it remains currently in accordance with the delivery agreement that's been produced. As I say, it's a different situation, updating a relatively recent LDP as to updating an outdated unitary development plan, which is on a different system.
Oh, nice. Okay, thank you. You can see the item there is for information. So, oh, sorry, Councillor.
I've had a funny turn. And I was thinking, a lady contacted me to say that she had planning consent for a caravan in Lanridian, and she wants to change it slightly. Suddenly, she's had a letter back from the planners saying that the plan is, and suddenly it's on a horse box. No, I said, well, There are horse boxes there and stables, but there's a caravan. So moving, I don't know how you guys move a caravan to it so she can sleep in the stables tonight. She's terribly worried. I had problems with this in the beginning because they were going to take action against her 10 years ago, maybe more now, 20 perhaps. And I had a letter from the senior officer in the council then saying they weren't going to take any action because she'd been living there for 20 years. And now she's had this letter in telling her it's on a horse box. I just find out what's going on. I'm sure you'll find it out. And
well, we'll have to pick that up somewhere else. So it's not relevant to LDP. It is there for information. Thank you. And then the final item, Ian, is the annual performance report.
Thank you, Chair. As most of you will be aware, this time of the year we tend to bring an annual performance report to committee outlining the performance of the development management team. It was introduced as a requirement by Welsh Government to enable them to monitor performances of LPAs throughout Wales. Up to COVID, every authority submitted the report to Welsh Government every year. That requirement has been suspended since the COVID outbreak, but we've always produced a report so we could inform yourselves and ourselves really as to how the department is performing. And the requirement to resubmit to Welsh Government is being reintroduced from the 25-26 financial year. So the report before you relates to the 24-25 financial year. I'll highlight a few of the main points in there, and then if members have any queries or questions, there'll be an opportunity at the end then to ask those. So in terms of planning applications, we've determined 93.9% within agreed timescales. The Welsh Government has a target of 80%, so we're performing well above that target. But in terms of the 8-week performance, we're at 66%. If you compare to other authorities in Wales, it's still one of the higher performing authorities, but it does show we're relying increasingly on applicants and agents agreeing an extension of time to determine applications. There's a number of reasons why that might be the case. I've highlighted in the report pressure on staff resources, that causes delays, but there's also things like amendments. So when amended plans come in, it automatically increases the time to determine an application, but would take it beyond 8 weeks. So it shows up as not being within 8 weeks, but because of the amendments, that is part of the process. Welsh Government have also introduced requirements for things like green infrastructure statements. It's not a validation requirement. So if an application is submitted without a green infrastructure statement, we still process it, but we still require one in most cases to determine the application. So we'll ask for them to be submitted, and again, that could take it over the 8 weeks. So it doesn't reflect in the statistics why, in all cases, it's going over the 8 weeks. In terms of enforcement, very similar to last year in terms of percentage of complaints investigated within 12 weeks of receipt, or 32%. I have highlighted to committee previously there is a backlog which was worsened in COVID. We're pretty consistent in the numbers we're resolving, but with the backlog, and we are receiving more than we're resolving in a year, that backlog is only increasing. So it's an area we're looking at, but it isn't easy to resolve. We've also had to have an enforcement officer dealing with planning applications during the year because of the staff resource position. So again, that's impacted on performance. In terms of appeals, 83% of appeals submitted against the council's decision were dismissed. So that demonstrates generally a high quality of decision making by the council. The Welsh Government target is 66%, so we are well in excess of that, and it reflects really the LDP is in place, and decisions are made against the LDP. Tom's just gone through the report. I mean, the evidence base is there. Unless it's contradictory to national policy, we would still be continuing to apply the policies in the LDP and, looking to sustain that record really on appeal. In terms of staffing, the report highlights we've lost over the last 12-18 months 2 temporary senior planning officer posts that were funded from planning performance agreement money. That money wasn't available, so we couldn't renew those temporary contracts. So that increases pressure on other staff to deal with applications because there's less officers in the department, obviously, to deal with it. Again, I've highlighted in the report there have been staff absences at different times over the year for various reasons, and again that adds to pressure on resources. On that point, we have undertaken a recruitment exercise recently. We've offered 3 posts which are waiting to be filled. They're just going through the final checks with sort of HR and so on. So hopefully that will start to ease some of the pressure on staff. And we're looking at other alternatives in terms of relieving that pressure as we go forward. The other final point I want to pick up on is budget. The report highlights a shortfall in planning fees compared to income targets. As you'll be aware, we estimate an income for the year, but we've got no control over what planning applications are submitted, either in quantity or the type of application. So, major applications tend to bring bigger fees in, but we tend to get more of the householder ones. We estimate, as I say, how much, but over that 24-25 year, there were significant shortfalls in the planning income. However, 1st of December this year, we'll see a rise in planning fees. That's the first rise in fees since 2020. So hopefully that will address some of the shortfall in income. And the early indications are that planning income is higher this year anyway already. So again, we'll have a look at how the income pans out over the next 6 months or so. And, we look at hopefully being able to use that extra income to increase resources in the department as well. Okay. It is for information, but as I say, if there's any questions, happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much, Ian. Councillor May?
What is the percentage increase in income? Sorry, please.
It's difficult to say a figure across the board.
And fee, I mentioned fees, not income.
Yeah.
Fees.
So Welsh Government are looking at full cost recovery. So the way the fees have been introduced is that they're going to introduce some fees as full cost recovery now. So they're looking back to 2020, increasing by inflation since 2020, plus adding an element of cost towards full cost recovery. They're not doing that for all fee categories immediately. Some will be introduced over the next few years. So there'll be one thing they're doing in the fees, they introduced legislation, so there will be annual fee increases from the 1st of April in line with inflation. Although the first one for that will be 2027 because it's so close to the fees increasing in December. So over the next 3 or 4 years, there'll be annual increases in April, and the fees that haven't gone up to full cost recovery now will gradually be increased over that period to come to full cost recovery. So in some cases, you are talking householder application, for example, at the moment is £230, I think, and that's gone up to over 500. So significant fee increases, on all applications.
Yeah, just on the income, we say you're putting them up and applications coming in, but what effect would NRW have on these large developers who now will not bring their applications forward, to which we were thinking, oh, there's a nice little income here, and then that then disappears? For how long, we don't know at this moment in time, do we?
We don't know if that is going to happen, but it's obviously a potential impact that developers decide not to submit the applications with the uncertainty over the nitrates issue. A lot of our strategic sites have already been subject to planning applications. So they have been in. We just have to wait to see, I think, how developers decide to deal with it. We're still getting pre-application inquiries. I'm aware that some developers are looking to go to PAC on some major schemes, so they may still come in with the applications and try and resolve the issue, because generally applications of that scale are not sort of determined, in a short period of time. So they may decide we'll put the application in and we'll try and resolve the nitrate issue as we go through.
Yeah.
I just have to wait and see.
Also on that, how do you envisage that NRW will affect our response within time? Because now we go to NRW, they're going to take twice as long to come back to us. Does that then affect our record, as it were?
Yeah, obviously consultation responses can impact on speed of decision. And in some cases, we feel we're unable to issue a decision without the consultation response. It's specifically on the nitrate issue. NRW are not commenting specifically on nitrates. What they've said is we've given you the advice. As a council, you have to assess, is there likely to be a significant effect? And if so, carry out an appropriate assessment. If that appropriate assessment shows, or if there is a significant effect and the appropriate assessment shows that is going to be sort of effects on the SAC that can't be mitigated, then we have an option of either refusing the application or asking the applicant will they agree to an extension of time. But that decision rests with us. So NRW have issued the advice. They won't specifically comment on nitrates in consultation responses. They'll comment on other issues, ecology and so on.
Okay, we've got no other comments coming in. Nobody wants to raise their hand. There's a report that in the main is quite positive, and we'd like to thank you for that. So you see, it's for information only. Thank you all. And that concludes our business today. Thank you.